Second Chance. Second Chance is a weekly talk show that examines a wide range of social issues and seeks to inspire physical, emotional, social, and spiritual healing, believing that God is a God of second chances, and through faith, all things are possible. Second Chance airs live each week from the beautiful campus of Oakwood University and features real people with real issues and offers real answers. And now, here's your host, Kenneth Anderson.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Second Chance radio broadcast. I'm Kenny Anderson. As always, delighted to be here in the studio with you for the broadcast. And of course, I am always delighted to be right here in the studio at Praise 90.1 FM for information and inspiration each week, but especially so on the first and third Sundays of the month when I have a segment called What's Going On, my social and political roundtable discussion that features insight and perspective provided by some of the coolest and brightest guys that I know, and sometimes some of the coolest and brightest women that I know. We kind of mix it up here on the broadcast because we always appreciate a diversity of thought, which is, of course, one of the things that's often missed in the discourse, whether it's political or otherwise today, where people either lean towards one side or the other. We try to just simply give it to you like it is. And, of course, these are learned brethren who are with us today. And I want to bring them on in just a couple of minutes, but I want to let you all know about a few things that are happening before I do that, because I am indeed excited about them being here with us today. There is going to be, right after I leave here, in fact, at 5 o'clock today, a Hispanic Community Town Hall meeting scheduled for 5 until 6:30 p.m. this afternoon at McDonald Elementary School cafeteria at 4010 Benderton Place, right here in Huntsville, Alabama. And a delicious meal, the poster says a light meal, but a delicious meal that will feature a taco bar from Phil Sandoval's will be served and available beginning at 4:30 this afternoon. So I'm going to quickly transition from this place to that place right after this broadcast so that I can be there for the Hispanic Town Hall meeting. We try to do those a couple of times a year to hear from our Hispanic constituents in our community, so that we're just not making assumptions about things, but that we're working to build bridges of opportunity as our city continues to grow and diversify. Joining us this afternoon will be our mayor as well as our council member from that district, Councilman Bill Kling, Kirk Giles, the police chief, Ryan Renard, the Huntsville City School Board member, Marcos Almonte, who is the chair of the Hispanic Latino Advisory Council, which falls under my purview as well in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and Tammy Robbins, who is with the Huntsville City School Systems. She is the ESOL coordinator. Very excited to have that happening this afternoon. Also, just 2 weeks from today, we are partnering, meaning once again, my office, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the city of Huntsville, on the second annual Juneteenth event in partnership with Amazon. We're very happy and very delighted that we are once again working towards having a major experience in Big Spring Park West that helps us to affirm the value of Juneteenth and to help us also acknowledge many of the things that Juneteenth represents in terms of our lives today. For me, Juneteenth is more than just a holiday, and one of the things that I quickly realized when it became a federal holiday was that I wanted to do more than just have a party. I wanted to help people learn and to grow and to partner and collaborate in the community for the good of all people. So Amazon and the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion will be working alongside their Black Employee Network, which is a network of many individuals, from what I understand, on an event that will take place from 5 to 9, 2 weeks from tonight. That's June the 15th. There's going to be a free meal giveaway. 1,500 boxes of food will be given away. We'll be honoring some African-American community leaders. I know their names. I will not tip their hand right now, but I think they're certainly appropriate. Our good friend, William Peanut Hampton, is going to have a display out there from his initiative, Huntsville Revisited. They're going to be free health screenings as well as free haircuts, exhibitors, food, and fireworks. So this is a big deal, folks, and it's all free of charge to our community. We hope that you'll choose to come out 2 weeks from tonight, Big Spring Park West in downtown Huntsville from 5 to 9 for the big Juneteenth event. And then just this past Friday, we made the big Jazz in the Park announcement for this year. Of course, that is one of my babies and something I'm very proud of to be able to bring to Huntsville every year. Performances will be held this year every Sunday in September, except for the 29th, and the first Monday of September, which will be actual Labor Day. It's the first time we're ever doing that, so it'll be a big 2-week opening, and we've got some really heavy hitters coming on. I'm just going to give you the headliners right now, and I'll talk about some of the other smoke that we're firing up as we move forward. But Jakeem Joyner, phenomenal saxophonist, will be kicking things off on that first Sunday night. And then following him on Monday night is amazing flautist, Althea Renee. We're excited about having her come back. BK Jackson, if you were a part of Jazz in the Park last year, and you got a little taste of what BJ did when he set the park on fire, BJ's coming back to set the park on fire one more time. JJ Sanseverino is going to join us for a special Hispanic Heritage Month opener. And even though JJ is of Italian heritage, we're going to be having a special performance by a band called Tony and the Kings out of Miami. They are a Latin jazz band, and we're very excited to have them. Burton, you need to come on up that day, man, and just be a part of that. And we'll talk about that more in just a moment. And multi-instrumentalist Marcus Anderson with his 7-piece band. I'm telling you, folks, if you've been to Jazz in the Park before, you will certainly confirm and affirm that it's been a wonderful event. But this is going to be the year to be there. And I'm already getting calls from people from all over the nation, actually, who are trying to strategically plot their travel to Huntsville so that they can be a part of this free event that my first guest, David Person, has been a part of on a number of occasions. In fact, David is part of the planning committee for Jazz in the Park. He's been a strong supporter of the initiative in a lot of ways. We partnered with a podcast called Jazz with Kenny Anderson, which we're still trying to figure out how we can make happen before, too long.
Yeah.
And what's up, my brother?
Hey, man. It's exciting times, huh?
It really is. There's a lot of stuff going on and just kind of moving into the month of June. I'm really excited.
Yeah. We got a few months to go for Jazz in the Park. And then, like you said, between now and then, I know there are a lot of activities that are going to be happening. I was listening to your rundown there of activities. Sounds real good. And looks like we're off to a good summer.
I think so, and there are going to be a lot of things going on. In fact, I didn't mention that in just about 6 weeks from yesterday, our big back-to-school event will take place. And we're going to once again give away 40,000 pounds of food, 1,000 backpacks full of school supplies. So I'm just going to say a brother and a team are on the ground trying to, move and shake and do as much as we can to bless people across the spectrum of our community.
Yeah, man. And major props to you for using your platform to do that, because that's not in your job description. I know that's extra work. So,
Yes, sir.
so good for you, brother.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited about it. And I know as I just invoked his name, I put it in his head. He's already thinking about it. Keith Burton, the date is September the 15th. You may find yourself in Huntsville. I could do a Jedi trick on you. You will find yourself in Huntsville. You will find yourself in Huntsville. Keith Burton, what's going on, my brother?
Hey, assalamu alaikum, my friend.
Yes. Walaikum salam, man. Good to have you back on the broadcast. I know you've always got lots of stuff going on, so it's great when you can just take a pause and join us on the show.
Always good to be here. And September 15th, that's actually my son's birthday. August in September. that turns 30 on that day. So I want to see if he wants to take a trip to Huntsville. In fact, I might try to audition with the band, see if they would accept my triangle playing.
Hey, look, Tony is down there in Miami and you were there in Orlando. So, y'all
I just going because I play a mean triangle, man.
Man, it could be a great addition. I won't speak for him, but I know I would appreciate it.
I do miss those days. I really do.
Yeah, well, listen, you were always a big supporter when you were here. And, of course, even if you're not here, we feel your spirit and your energy. But if you and the birthday boy and the missus or anybody else want to come up, man, you get the VIP treatment now.
I know that. Yeah, I get spoiled, man. I get spoiled. And I mean, anytime I go out with Kenny Henderson, man, I have to come and look at my paycheck to see, because Kenny has us living high. Oh my goodness.
Oh man, one of the benefits of life, man, just being connected to somebody that likes to do things at the most excellent level. And speaking of the most excellent level, we've got an excellent guest on today in the person of Dr. Fred Greene. He joins us this afternoon after a short hiatus. Of course, we got so many commentators now. I try to mix and mingle the group and pair folk and things of that nature, but it's all working out very well. I think I got the right formula right now with just having 3 on, and then we kind of make this thing happen. It's been a lot of good stuff going on as a consequence of that. Dr. Greene, great to see you as always.
Good to be here, Kenny.
How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well. It's always good to be on your show. It's always good to just be here on a Sunday.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah, no, it wasn't, but it sure is now. And that's a good thing because sometimes those things are an opportunity, I think, for us to really explore different options in terms of perspectives, different voices. As I said earlier, there are a lot of people in the mix right now who make themselves available from time to time. We've got another one of these coming up later this month, and looking forward to having a slightly modified version of this panel and this team. So we just look forward to having these conversations on a regular basis. And, I always like to say timing is everything. And I truly believe that in the context of some of the things that we're going to talk about today. But I want to, first of all, spend just a few moments, as I have over the last couple of weeks, just celebrating commencement and the commencement spirit. This really is one of my favorite times of year, not just because I come from an academic environment, but because I have walked across that stage a few times, and I've been in that position. I've been a graduation announcer. I mean, I've been in the audience celebrating and cheering other people on. I've only been to one live graduation this year. That was for the graduation of Olivia Brown, who was the granddaughter of my surrogate parents, Reverend Robert Brown and Doris Brown, who are now both deceased. But I wanted to be at her graduation, her high school graduation, because I held Olivia as a baby. And it was just so amazing to get that graduation announcement. I know her grandparents would have been so proud to see her walk across that stage. And when I heard her name, it was just everything for me on last Thursday as she graduated from Grissom High School. And of course, I wish her nothing but the best as she moves on in this process. But I thought as I was planning this show today, I've got a whole lot of guys that have experienced the graduation thing, that they've been a part of the academic environment in the form of educators. And I am a huge advocate for this period of time of year where people are experiencing the transitions of their lives that are really going to perhaps establish the foundation for their future success. And at whatever age that is. I remember seeing just last week, I believe it was, an 80-plus-year-old grandmother who graduated, and maybe she's even a great-grandmother now, graduated with her degree, her doctoral degree. And I'm like, it's never too late in life. And you see those kinds of stories, and it just gets you so excited. Keith, I know you're a long-term academician and, of course, have been deeply embedded in the roots and foundation of education. This time has to be a special time for you. And whether you have somebody graduating or not, it has to be a special time for you.
It really is. And of course, the program that I direct right now, we just had our second cohort graduate. And it's always a wonderful thing to see those women and men walk across the stage. And mine is an online program. And so for some of my students, this is the first time I'm actually meeting them. And so we're supposed to be dignified on the stage as they walk, but the hugs are there and everything, like Dr. Burton in the flesh, and seeing them in the flesh and everything is just a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. But, it's almost like you've done your part. I see my children. So hear what I said, right? I see my students almost like my children in a sense, because you're doing your part in helping to nurture. So that's my role in the village. And just yesterday, actually, a student who I had last year was in the hospital, and she emailed, Doc, I'm going to be in the hospital. Can you come and see me? So I went down there yesterday. She told me the wrong hospital, but they found out where she was. And so I was able to go to the right hospital and met her parents and her sister and everything. It was just a wonderful thing. And just knowing that the students who you have under your tutelage are not just there for that semester or that quarter or that trimester, but my students become family for life. Honestly, they become family for life. And I'm sure, because all of us on here right now are educators, so I believe that we all have stories like that where there are students that just connect with you just as more than an invitation to a wedding. Doc, you got to be here, sort of thing, and I'm going to try my hardest to get there. It's actually a wedding in September. I need to check the date. See if I'm going to choose between Huntsville and I'm going to get that student may be listening right now. I was only joking.
Listen, you said something that is in my wheelhouse because I don't think there's any higher honor or experience as an educator when that student reconnects with you in some way. Maybe it's in the moment when they're just graduating, but especially so when they've gotten into their lives and their careers and their families, and they come back and they say to you something like, it was because of what I experienced in your class. It was because of that conversation I had in your office. It's because of what you shared with me in a particular space and time that I am who I am today. The accolades of my colleagues are fine if I ever get them, but it's those accolades that have really inspired me along my academic journey. Dr. Greene, I see you shaking your head as well because you too have been squarely in the academic arena for many, many years now, and certainly have to look at this as a great time of year.
It is. I love graduation. I love the pomp and circumstances. I love the regalia. I love doctoral gowns and master's gowns and all of that. I just got back from Pine Forge Academy graduation where my nephew graduated last week. And I was amazed that, high school graduation, they are so in tune to their history. And they literally in the program had printed every commencement, every baccalaureate, every consecration speaker since 1947. And, every student of the year, female and male, since 1956, et cetera. But just to something you said there, Kenny, and that is you're right that none of the awards that institutions give you or that your colleagues give you adds up to those students who let you know that you literally helped to change their life or to inspire them to excellence. And that happens all the time. I've always been a pre-law advisor, no matter where I go, even if I'm not teaching law. For whatever reason, I'm the pre-law advisor, and seeing students go into law school, go on to careers, pass the bar, go on to practice, and in many other areas of life too. But that one particularly only because students are always getting in touch with me and letting me know, sending me invitations to their graduations. And that's a wonderful experience to know that you're changing lives and doing something positive in someone's life.
And David, I know you've had a fresh experience of being in the classroom this past semester, and the idea that you have spent, a number of years in that particular space, providing opportunities for people to experience both traditional and non-traditional elements of teaching has been important to you. This commencement season has to, again, be a pretty inspiring time of life for you.
Yes, I love it just as our brothers here do. I had the privilege of doing some adjunct work for our alma mater, Oakwood University, in the fall of this past school year, and it's always a privilege to interact with the students and to get a sense of what the future has in store for us, especially when you're looking at a specific industry. As I was teaching communication students, and it's just very it was very inspiring to see some young people who already are showing clear signs of being leaders and successful content creators. So that was very special. I tell you what, I was looking much earlier this morning. I was looking at the graduation service for Spelman this past year. Angela Bassett was the commencement speaker, and she was given an honorary doctorate. And they also gave an honorary doctorate to Supreme Court Associate Justice Ketanji Brown. And that was so cool. Her remarks were just very inspiring. Well, she and Angela Bassett both, but she in particular, I watched her whole speech, and just very inspiring. And to think about the special role that Spelman has played and continues to play, not just in the Black community, but in the nation. And Oakwood, the same thing, that Oakwood continues to play, not just in the Black community or the Adventist church, but in the nation. And we can say the same thing for Alabama A&M University and Drake State Community and Technical College. I'm on the foundation board there, another HBCU. I mean, these institutions, these HBCUs are special.
Yes, they really are. And to know that our lineage passes through those and the immeasurable contributions that we've made across the years gives me a great source of pride. I want to just share a couple of quick things. I was at a health equity conference this past spring here in Huntsville that was coordinated by Columbus and Danette Batiste and their colleagues. And gentleman walked up to me, and I was introducing myself to him. I hadn't seen him in many years. He said, "You were my teacher." And I said, "Oh, okay, when was that?" And he told me I taught. And this was really unique because this is the only time this ever happened at Oakwood. I was asked one semester to teach a Principles of Sociology course. And it is amazing how many people have come up to me over the years who were in that class that I got to teach only one time, who said it was one of the most extraordinary experiences that they've ever had in terms of a classroom experience. And we got to talking. Of course, we exchanged numbers and emails and all that other good stuff because there was just a good feeling that came from that. And I'm going to share another experience that I think is really extraordinary, unique, and it really speaks to the person that you bring into the classroom wherever you might bring that person, you, into the classroom. So I'm teaching at Calhoun, and of course, I had taught at Oakwood prior to teaching at Calhoun for about 7 years. And so when you're teaching at Oakwood, you begin every class with devotion and prayer. And it's just kind of one of those routine things that happens. Now I'm in a secular institution. I pray before I go into the classroom, but I don't pray with my students. I want to respect those boundaries. A student walked up to me one day after class and said, "Mr. Anderson, may I see you in your office or speak to you in your office?" I said, "Sure." Student said when they got to the office, "Would you pray with me?" That blew me away because I had never once said to that student, "I go to this church or that church." I don't think I've ever mentioned God. I don't know that happened, or I put some kind of context to what I was. I mean, at that time, I was even an ordained elder. I had never said anything like that. I was ordained last week or whatever. And I had to ask the student because it was so compelling that the student would ask me that. I said, "What made you ask me to pray with you?" And here's what the student said in a paraphrase. Student said that, "I have watched you over the course of this semester, and it became clear to me that you had to be a person of faith because of the way you treated every student with a measure of respect and consideration and the empathy that you've shown consistently throughout the semester." I said, "You have to be a person of faith." And we prayed in that office, and I have to tell you, it's one of the most extraordinary experiences of my educational career. And it really left something in my mind in terms of what we have the potential to be when we come into that classroom. And there's a presumption, I think, that we make sometimes with students that, and I'm saying we collectively in the body of academic people, there's almost like this expectation that because they're there, they're ready, they're prepared, they're resourced. And in so many instances, that's not the case. Sometimes just being there is one of the most frightening things that they've experienced in their lifetime. They don't have a clue, even though they may come across as if they do. They're speaking from a point of insecurity sometimes or uncertainty. And what we are to people in the classroom as instructors, teachers, educators is so extremely important and valuable in terms of what happens down the line. So when they come back to me so many years later and say what they say, I'm reminded about those ways in which I showed up and presented myself in a consistent way in order to be able to do that. So yes, I celebrate commencement time. It is one of my absolute favorite times of year. I love all the commencement energy and love on social media. I've liked and congratulated people I don't even know just because it was posted, because I think that is so important. I see you, Keith.
Yeah. I'm not sure who it was that said, "I can't hear what you say because what you do speak so loudly." And one of the things I find in a lot of Christian schools, faith-based schools, there's this whole emphasis on the integration of faith and learning. And many people see it as the integration of doctrine and learning. And I think the testimony that you shared is so powerful because you never had to open up a Bible. You never had to wear your faith credentials on your sleeve, but somebody in your class saw that you were connected with the divine. Somebody in your class approached you and said, "Hey, you know, I want to trust my faith concern with you." So I think that's very, very important for all of us, not only those of us who teach, but whatever we do, we don't have to, be the ones throwing tracts at people and doing different things. No, just the way we live. Jesus says, "By this shall all people know that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another." At our alma mater, when we drive in, we see those words, "Enter to learn." When we leave, "Depart to serve." But sometimes I put a little twist on it. Sometimes we depart to learn. We depart to learn what the needs are in the community, and we enter to serve. We enter to serve because, particularly as teachers, that's what we're doing. We're serving. But if we don't know what's happening out there, if we don't know the experiences of our students who have come in, there is no way in which we're going to be able to serve them in a way that matters. So thanks so much for your testimony, for reminding us that the best sermon is the lived one.
Yeah, it was at the top of the chain of all the experiences I've ever had in the academic environment. Speaking of commencement ceremonies, I don't know if any of you have seen the one that's being talked about the most and over the last few days, and that's the Ken Burns commencement ceremony or speech at Brandeis University. Keith, have you seen it? You're on.
I've got little snippets, but I do appreciate the fact that he was prophetic. I mean, that was prophetic. It was prescient. It was definitely timely. And the big question is, if I could use the words of John the Revelator, he or she who has an ear, let him or her hear what the Spirit is saying to this nation.
I would strongly encourage anybody who has not seen it and draw your own conclusion from what you hear. I'm not telling you what to think about it. I'm just simply saying that Ken Burns showed up at Brandeis University at a commencement ceremony that many are calling the most extraordinary that they've ever heard. In fact, somebody called it the Emancipation Proclamation of commencement ceremony speeches. I mean, that's a pretty strong statement. And it's a very powerful one. I actually started it. I must confess, and I hope I don't offend anyone out there. I've been a commencement speaker before, so I hope I don't offend anyone. But commencement speeches are typically real hard for me to take. And I'm just just being very authentic and transparent, only because sometimes I think that the speaker forgets what the moment is all about. The moment is all about the students that are graduating. And I've seen some speakers just kind of hijack that moment and take it in a direction that was really untimely, I thought, for the moment. But when I started looking at Ken Burns' speech, who I think is a genius anyway, I was just stunned from the very beginning. I was like, wow, I wonder where this is going. And from his introduction to his close, I mean, it is an extraordinary speech. I will say this as I introduce our first topic. Among the things he said, he referenced the speech by Abraham Lincoln in 1838. And there's some debate on, how much of what is attributed to Lincoln was really said by Lincoln. I had to go back and do some research on that too after I heard the speech. But here is what Lincoln said. Lincoln said, and this was spoken or quoted by Ken Burns in his speech. At what point, then, is the approach of danger to be expected? I answer, if it ever reach us, it must spring up amongst us. This is Abraham Lincoln. It cannot come from abroad. If destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. As a nation of free men, we must live through all time or die by suicide. What a powerful, powerful quote. That was just part of the totality of what Ken Burns shared. So, gentlemen, we are all talking about the number 34 these days, and largely because of the fact that the former president this past week was found guilty on 34 charges by a jury of his peers that many are also having conversation about. And I just want to share a few things that have come as a consequence of that, and then ask each of you what your thoughts are about the verdicts. A plurality of Americans, that's 50%, think former President Donald Trump's guilty verdict on all 34 counts was correct. This poll also found that as many as 49% think he should end his 2024 presidential campaign over the result. This was an ABC News poll that was just conducted yesterday. Still following the historic criminal trial that ended this past week in a first ever conviction of a former president, Trump's favorability has remained about the same at 31%. And after the Trump conviction, 14% of Republicans who said they would not vote for felon is a representation of a number that was actually much higher prior to the conviction. Prior to the conviction, that number was 24% of Republicans who said they would not vote for a felon. That number is down to 14%. Gentlemen, you have no doubt been reading about the verdict and some of the stems that have come from that and the conversations that have come from that. Let's start with David Person. Your thoughts about the convictions and the guilty verdicts that were rendered this past week on the charges against the former president.
Everything that I have heard and read indicates that the verdicts were solid verdicts, that they were based on strongly on the documentation that exists regarding the falsifying of records in order to cover up the other crimes, you know, the payoffs. And of course, all of that was done in order to affect the election. So everything that I've read and heard says it was solid. It always seemed to me that it was obvious that even if there wasn't an illegality at issue, there was certainly an immorality that was at issue, or multiple immoralities. But everything that is immoral is not illegal. But in this case, the jury, and I know, found that it was in fact illegal. And I know Trump has railed against the judge, which is really stupid because the judge is the one that's ultimately got to sentence him. So that's stupid. He's railed against Alvin Bragg. Well, neither Bragg nor the judge found him guilty. It was the jury that found him guilty. And before the jury found him guilty, they obviously had to, there had to be a grand jury that would indicate that it should go to trial. So I think it's absolutely what should happen. Now, the question is what needs to happen next. And I'm going to say, even though you didn't ask this question, I'm going to go ahead and say that I do not believe he should be sentenced, that his sentence should include jail time. We're talking about is immoral as it was and as deeply troubling as the reasons were, with the national implication of affecting an election. The crimes themselves were white collar crimes that were fairly minor, relatively speaking. And so I don't think he should be sentenced to prison. Now I'm saying that as a citizen, but I'm also saying that as a Democrat looking toward the November election. If Trump is sentenced to prison, I believe it's going to benefit him in the vote. I think it's going to galvanize the Republican voting base to such a degree that it's going to give him an advantage. So both as a citizen and as a Democrat, as much as I want to see him lose the election, I don't want to see him imprisoned for this particular crime. Now, he's got some other cases coming up where I think he should go to prison if he's convicted.
Dr. Burton, in the same survey, 47% of Americans said they think the charges against Trump in this case were politically motivated. 38% say they were not. And at the same time, a slight majority at 51% think that Trump did intentionally do something illegal in this case. So you have opinions of people all over the place. What are your thoughts about this verdict?
Yeah, the whole idea of the case being politically motivated, well, yeah, it was about politics, and so it'll be interesting to see how people understood that question because it was about trying to affect the results of an election. So yeah, politically motivated. Yeah. So I guess one could twist it a certain way. I know that's not what they meant, but one could actually twist it that way, right? But of course, I think people are very sensitive because they're wondering about, what the implications may be on his own martyrdom, if indeed he is, if I could use the word further martyred, not in a positive sense, but if he's further martyred, what that may mean for his chances in November. I have a different perspective than David, though. And I actually believe he should go to jail. And here's the reason why. Cohen, right? Michael Cohen. He's been sentenced for 3 years. COVID kind of got him out a little bit, for covering for this guy. And the bottom line is, we purport to be a nation of laws where no one is above the law. Well, we all know that not to be true, in the sense that those who, have the resources oftentimes are able to skirt the law, finding this loophole and that loophole. But I do hope that the DA does indeed suggest jail time for him, and that the judge follows through. I mean, he's basically moved forward with impunity. And I believe that what we've been doing for the past how many years, we've been delaying the inevitable. And when we delay the inevitable, and when I say the inevitable, hopefully it's not the inevitable, but we've been delaying the possible, some may say the probable, and that's like an actual physical civil war. But the longer we wait, I think the more the potential for a bloody reaction is heightened, and so we're trying to be nice, we're trying to play nice, and all we see is the number of those who decide they're going to dig in and support the former president, regardless of what he does. That number just appears to be growing. And in fact, after the verdict, there were some people who decided that they were going to make it a point to register to vote in the election so they can vote for him. Now, what I find as I look at the response, I think the Democratic response has been very, very measured. I know there are some people who want the Democrats to go for the jugular. I'm glad that they haven't. I do feel that, I've listened to Reverend Al and joined others, and they're talking about the Black folk who've been involved in this process and saying, isn't that ironic and stuff? And I kind of wish they'd toned down on that, because I think it's feeding the this venomous intent of those who are siding with him for racialized reasons. And so, yes, that is a matter of fact, but let's not shine too much of a light on that, because I feel that it can muddy things up even more. I also get a little squeamish when I hear folk like President Biden and others saying, yes, the American system of justice works, when we know it doesn't all the time. We know it doesn't for a lot of us. But the strange thing is, Trump, with his twisted mastermind, and I hate to use the word mastermind with Trump, but he knows what he's doing when he's saying the justice system doesn't work, and he's going to say, well, it doesn't work, and it's there are a number of Black folk who said, hey, we're going to support him because we know how it feels to be in that situation, and so there's a whole lot that's going through my mind, and I don't know what the remedy is. I honestly don't. But I think maybe if we would take our finger off the scale, things may even out a little better. Or maybe this is the end time that some of us, have been talking about for many years, and there's nothing we can do to slow it down.
Yeah, woo. I ask you guys questions and you give me deep perspective on things, and I'm like, am I better because I now have thought about something differently, or do I feel worse? And it's real interesting, I think, because to your point, Keith, I think that there are things that are being said that stoke the fire even more, that people need to be mindful about. I think people have also kind of thought from the perspective of the Democrats sort of tap dancing around the process, comparatively talking about if this is the Republicans, there would have been a different response. And people have often suggested that, what do you have to lose, because you've got two unpopular candidates in this race. And, it's almost like they're going to be bloodied, right? They're both going to be bloodied right to the finish line, but for different reasons. Biden being slammed for his policies and for his age, and of course, Trump for his conviction, et cetera, et cetera. This is not exactly what I had in mind when I first got into the political arena and voting and taking an interest in the political landscape. This is really rather surreal and hard to really understand where we're headed. And we very well could be in one of those scenarios that Keith just said. Dr. Greene, of course, you have a lot of understanding, not only about the political landscape. It's one of the things I think that helped us connect so many years ago at Oakwood when you were the editor of the Spreading Oak newspaper, and I was one of the writers that supported your work. We used to always have these kinds of conversations in much more static environments. But you also have a deep understanding of the law as well. I wonder what your thoughts are and what your reaction was to the verdict.
Well, like everyone, the verdict was interesting that, you have a jury that unanimously convicts him, of course, on all counts. And of course, it had to be unanimous. I'll address some of the points, I guess, some of my colleagues here, friends or co-panelists, I guess, addressed. And that is that I don't think that he should be sentenced to jail or prison. And the reason why is here's the problem we have. Donald Trump has harmed America in ways that are unfathomable. Now, and we could talk about all the stuff he did as president, but he's attacked the criminal justice system in ways that are not even reasonable to attack, meaning that, yes, the criminal justice system has been unfair to the poor, unfair to African Americans for many, many years. But we can go back and look at the OJ trial to find out what unlimited resources can do for you in the criminal justice system. You can go and look at most wealthy defendants are able to navigate their way through the criminal justice system and have good results. You really have to be seriously guilty when you're wealthy and have the best lawyers that money can buy to get convicted in America. And so what's really, it tells us something that, you have these, New Yorkers from all walks of life who found him guilty on all counts. That should tell you a lot. Now, sending him to jail would be in many ways absurd for a number of reasons. One, the man's never been convicted of anything. He's 77, almost 78 years old. As a practical matter, in most states with large cities, and particularly in New York, you're looking at a class 4 felony or class D felony. And with the class D felony, nonviolent crime, the chance of being incarcerated is not that high. You're looking at white collar crime. Now, you could argue that it should be, but I don't think that it's practical to change that policy or change that history with a former president. I mean, if you're going to change that history, go and do it legislatively, et cetera. But the reality is that most defendants, and I mean probably in the high 90% of defendants in his situation, would not serve jail time. They would serve some community service. They would pay some fines, and there would be some, restrictions possibly on, traveling out of the country, possibly. And so I think that it would be inflammatory in ways that we really don't want to address to try to incarcerate him on these offenses. At some point in time, I hope you're going to get around to the appeal, because I like to address that too. But you didn't ask about that now, so I'll leave it alone.
Well, I will say, and I'll lead into whatever you'd like to say about it. But I do want to note that in its 130-year history, the Appellate Division, First Department, the prestigious Manhattan-based Mid-Level Appeals Court, which is where this case will be heard, is actually now staffed by 5 African-American females, and that the appeal will be heard by these sisters, which I think adds an interesting element to the case as well. And I know, Fred, you led into appeal and I
Okay.
will allow you to say whatever you want to say. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I got distracted for a minute. I was trying to read and talk at the same time.
Right. Right.
Apparently, I
Yeah.
can't do that.
Okay, Kenny. Now, this, I hate to do this, but I have to correct you. Is that okay?
It's okay to correct me if I need
Okay,
to be
it's okay to
corrected.
correct you. Okay. I mean, it's your show, so I don't
No,
know
yeah,
whether or
but
not it's
we don't do what
okay.
other shows do. We don't let people say wrong stuff and don't challenge them
Okay.
on it.
All right. All right. Now, it is correct that on May 2 of this year, or it might have been February, I have the date, at some date, there was a panel. Okay, and the appeals court you're talking about, which is correct, that is okay. Let me. It's going to take me a second to lay this out. Okay, New York is the only state in America that the Supreme Court is the trial court. Every other state in America uses some type of term, such as the Supreme Court, to represent the highest court. In New York, the Supreme Court is the trial court, one of the trial courts. There's a bunch of them, but it's particularly in criminal cases. So you're in Manhattan, which is, of course, in New York County, and you or makes up New York County. And so you have, as you indicated, the Supreme Court of New York for Manhattan, or the Supreme Court of New York, appellate division, and as you indicated, the first, what's the word you used?
Division.
First division, right? Okay. The first division actually consists of 21 judges. The Chief Justice is an African American female. She's the second female since 1891, when the court started, to be the Chief Justice, but she's the first Black to be the Chief Justice. The panel that the picture they're showing on Facebook with the 5 women, they are 5 of 21 justices that make up that first division. The Supreme Court appellate division of the Supreme Court in New York acts very much like how appeals courts in the federal system work. And that is, when you appeal a federal case, what happens is you go to the appellate division, you go to the United States Court of Appeals for wherever it is, and you end up with a panel of judges. Usually it's a panel of 3 judges. And you end up with a panel of judges. There may be 12 or 14 or 18 or 25 judges on that particular, appellate division. And you get a panel of 3 judges. And now here's the difference. In New York, there's no en banc hearing, and in the federal system there is. And what that means is this. En banc means when the entire appellate division on appeal, or after you lose whatever you don't like the way it happened, they will appeal it en banc to everyone. That doesn't exist under the New York system. And so you have 5 justices that are assigned either randomly or whatever system they use to an appeal. And so the chance that these same 5 Black women, who for the very first time, and they have this wonderful picture on Facebook of them, the 5 Black women who served on that panel on that date, which did make history. It's the first time history of New York that you had 5 women, Black women, serving on that panel. The chance that those 5 Black women out of the 21 justices, consisting of 13 women and 8 men, would be reconfigured in the case of Donald Trump is not that high. I didn't do the statistics, and but we could do the statistics. It's not that high. So that's a meme that was out there, and people, I saw that too, but that's simply not how it's going to be. Now, once again, so there'll be a panel of 5 judges picked from 21 judges who will hear his appeal. And then from there, it goes to the Court of Appeals of New York, assuming that they grant certiorari to hear it, which would in fact determine whether or not, and then of course from there it could go to the Supreme Court of the United States, depending if there are federal issues involved.
Yeah, I want to thank. I want to thank you for a couple of reasons. First of all, so my motivation was not the meme; it was actually the actual story of their historic experience. I know there may be a meme or something out there. I didn't see that. There are only 2 ways that I could have known what Fred just eloquently laid out for our audience. You either have to be practicing the law or you need to be breaking the law. And since I'm not doing either one, I'm so glad that Fred was here today to set the record straight and keep us on the right path. And I'm very sincere about that, Fred, because that's what we want to do on this broadcast. We want to give people real evidence, real clear direction on the way they think about these things and the way they understand these things. We don't tell people what to think. We just give them things to consider and think. I did want to respond to Scott Laughinghouse, who's joining us this afternoon. What's up, Scott? I know it's been a big, I know I'm laughing too, brother. I know it's been a big commencement experience for you. Congrats to you and the family on your daughter's achievement. And I know that's always a big celebratory time. Only words really, and I'm always, well, there's no name there, but it's only words really says, it appears that your panel agrees with the verdict and procedure of the past week. I say yes, they do. Is there no differing view among your panel? Well, actually, there are differing views. I think two of my panels said that he should go to jail or shouldn't go to jail, and one said he should. So there's a difference, as well as some of the other perspectives that were shared. I have heard differences among the panel, and so I might be listening a little bit closer. I'm not sure, but yes, our panel are not unilateral in their thinking or, thinking in a kind of rote way as far as that's concerned. Yes, sir, Scott, thank you for joining us as always this afternoon. We appreciate that. I want to say this, that as we make the transition into the next phase of the broadcast today, we just passed a very significant anniversary. That was May the 25th, which was the 4th anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. And I want to come back and talk to the panel about what has happened in the last 4 years. And it's going to be sort of a compilation of things, not just in terms of what's happened within the context of law enforcement, with the failure of the House to take up, for the Senate to take up the George Floyd Community Policing Act, but also just in terms of, again, the DEI pushback that continues to exist. And that pushback exists not just in our academic environments, not just in our business environments, but I actually want to talk a little bit about how that's manifesting itself in the NFL today. And I'm going to do that in just a few moments after we come back from a short break. But before we go to the break, I do want to lay this out for people so that we'll know how we're going to come back into the conversation. So if you recall, and it's kind of interesting when I think about it, but May 25th, 2020, we had really just gotten into the pandemic, and a lot of people were still trying to sort things out as far as that was concerned. People were still kind of sheltering in place. And then all of a sudden, while we're all at home and we're all paying attention to what's happening on television and media, we see this horrific case that takes place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin puts his knee on George Floyd's neck, and George Floyd dies as a consequence of that. Chauvin, of course, was convicted of murder and manslaughter. He's currently serving 22 and a half years in state prison, being served concurrently with a 21-year federal conviction for violating George Floyd's civil rights. And the other officers involved, and there were 3, were convicted in Floyd's death and were handed prison sentences ranging from 3 and 4 years. Just this past week, the Floyd family was back in Washington, D.C., talking with House congressional members, trying to inspire some movement as far as the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which for many people have deemed a failure for the Biden administration thus far. And I want to kind of talk with this group about their thoughts on this process and where we are 4 years after George Floyd and the pushback on DEI in just a few moments. I'll be back in just a moment. I'm Kenny Anderson at Second Chance. I hope that you're having an amazing afternoon.
Why do we say praise 90.1 FM? Because the blessing is in the praise.
Jesus, I praise your name forever. Your words proclaim I'll serve you. Ain't no need to worry what the night is gonna bring. Don't you worry about it. It'll be all over in the morning. There's a praise on the inside. I can't keep to
Filling your day with songs of praise. We're Praise 90.1 FM.
Transforming lives.
Transforming lives.
You're listening to Second Chance with Kenneth Anderson.
Welcome back to the second half of What's Going On, my social political roundtable discussion that takes place every first and third Sunday of the month right here at Praise 90.1 FM on the Second Chance radio broadcast. We thank you for tuning in this afternoon. If you're on your radio feed at 90.1 FM, we thank you, but you can hop on over to Facebook or YouTube at Praise 90.1 FM, and you can actually catch the broadcast live. You can see the fellas in the different places that they are this afternoon, and they're scattered all over the place, and that's always a good thing. But that's the blessing of technology, that we can draw people in from wherever they might be, and we try to do as much of that as possible so that we can have as diverse a conversation as possible. Joining me today, David Person, Dr. Keith Burton, Dr. Frederick Greene, all joining me this afternoon for information, insight, and perspective on a variety of things. Just before I went to the break, I mentioned the fact that it's been 4 years since George Floyd was murdered, and there was an international outcry by many people, not just here in the United States, but many countries around the world who protested and were awakened in many ways. A lot of people credited that to the fact that everybody was locked down and everybody was compelled to see the truth of something that so many people have known for so long and had to deal with for so long. And outgrowth of that was legislation called the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act that was passed by the House but failed in the Senate. And just recently, in this past week, as they were acknowledging the 4th anniversary of their loved one's death, the family was up on Capitol Hill advocating for the passage of this bill once again. I want to ask, I'll start with Dr. Burton. Where do you think we are 4 years later in the light of the murder of George Floyd and the immediate response to calls for police reform as well as DEI initiatives in academic institutions, workspaces, and other places?
You know, you have to ask a guy who lives in Florida first. Huh?
I figured you might have more information and experience.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we laugh, but it's almost like, you know, we've taken a step forward and two backwards. And we know that we're always looking for an opportunity. When I say we, those of us concerned with justice, looking for an opportunity to push the cause of justice forward. And we get those opportunities every now and then, but somehow we've not been able to push the ball over the tip. So, you know, to see justice actually, you know, rolling down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. We've not been able to do that. And unfortunately, I think this is one of those cases. Now, I'm not going to blame Biden for it, you know, because then people are saying, well, Biden, you know, like the Brady Bunch, masha, you know. But no, the truth is, there's only so much Biden can do. If we know how our government works, Biden can't do this through executive order. You know, we have a dysfunctional Congress. And so the only way this is going to get done is if we have a Congress that cares to function. And unfortunately, when we sort of have this lockstep sports game that's going on where everyone votes for their team, you know, and there doesn't seem to be any crack on the Republican side. You know, you're always going to have a few Democrats who are going to cross over to the other side, but there's no, you know, reciprocity. And it doesn't seem as if at least this Congress has the will to get something done. Maybe if things change, we may see something different. But we've seen it. Biden has no influence over the Republican Party right now, and that's what's going to be needed to get this done. Now, kudos to George Floyd's family, because they realize that it's not just about their loved one. This is about a system that has long time needed changing. And we've grabbed the moment, but again, we're pushing this ball and the hill's getting steeper and steeper. And it's as if it's about to, bulldoze us again. I hate to talk like this, but even as I look around the nation and see many of the DEI positions that were, created, there's this huge proliferation, and people DEI, and now DEI is DEAD in many places. Of course, people just listened to that voice coming from the right, and the anti-woke legislations and everything else, and we're just seeing this happen again. I'm like, oh my goodness, we're still here. We're still here.
Yeah, David, let me further contextualize the conversation here, because it is reported that in the wake of George Floyd's murder, 1,100 organizations pledged over $200 billion to racial justice initiatives that support DE&I. It's a far different climate now, as the Supreme Court last year ruled that it restricted race-conscious college admissions, and at least 30 states have passed or introduced legislation that eliminates or restricts DEI initiatives. And one, as Keith said, one DEI initiative as another is falling as we move forward, or try to move forward. Your thoughts about the 4-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder?
Well, first and foremost, I would say I hope and pray that the George Floyd family is doing as well as they can do. To lose a loved one is always a hard thing. To lose a loved one in such a horrific way and such an unjust way has got to be extremely traumatic. And then to do so in full view of not just your community, but the world, has got to just bring an enormous amount of pressure to bear on that family. So God bless them, and I hope that they are doing well. I think we have lost ground when it comes to the initial impact of that horrific situation, the killing of George Floyd. I think the clock has actually rolled back just a bit, and I fear that it will continue. That was such a horrific, a graphic, and brazenly unjust and horrific act that you really couldn't be human and not feel something there, feel like there was something wrong there. But as we know, we live in a society where we are inundated constantly with media images and media messages. And of course, we have also been living in this era of Donald Trump, where his name or issues related to him have been almost weekly, if not daily, parts of the news cycle. So I think people have lost their fervor, and it's been diluted by these other things, and so we've lost ground. I'm concerned about it in the grand scheme of things, because I think it points to, and I think Keith was touching on this, it points to the fact that we've got some challenging days ahead in terms of trying to ensure that we are living in an equitable America.
I'm going to give Dr. Greene the last word on this. Your reflections on where we stand as a nation today in light of the George Floyd murder and the incredible number of DEI initiatives that were established at that time that have been severely impacted and diluted over the last 4 years.
as David said, the act itself, the crime itself, the death of George Floyd itself was a horrendous graphic for us to see and for us to realize that a human life could be snuffed out so just callously. The response, though, was a beautiful thing. And what I mean by that is that when you look at the number of people who came out and protested, the number of people who came out to events in support of justice was a beautiful time of racial reconciliation in some ways or progress in that direction. It's terribly unfortunate that the clock seems to have been turned back. I think it's fair to say it started in Florida with Ron DeSantis. Florida is one of the first states there. I know you're down there in Florida, Doc, but one of the first states to roll back DEI and to literally get it through the state legislature and signed by the governor. And then Tennessee, Utah, and Texas were the other states that have literally gone through the entire legislative process and got it enacted. Another 12 states have it through one house of their Congress, of their state house. And as you said, Kenny, there are 30 states that have been moving in that direction in some way, fashion, or form. It saddens me beyond belief that people could, in that short span of time, that the backlash could be so horrendous that something that was designed and has had a tremendous impact on helping to bridge the divide, helping to bring people together, helping to bring communities together. Kenny, you know the invaluable role that you play as DEI for the city of Huntsville. And amazingly, I think you played that role even before you had the job. When you were at Calhoun Community College and when you were at Oakwood and all, you had that role. And so when you officially got it there in the city of Huntsville, you know how important it is. I mean, I don't have to preach to the choir, and so to see this reversed and to see the reversal, we need politicians who are willing to stand up and say, this isn't right. This isn't helpful. This isn't who we are as Americans. This is not the direction we need to go in. And of course, it's the one party, it's the Republican Party that's doing the attacking. And you just don't have as many people standing up to make sure it doesn't happen. And so it's a sad time. I hope that, we'll see some changes in the 2024 election where some of this will be stymied. And that has to be by removing legislatures from state houses that are opposed to this progress, opposed to reconciliation, opposed to us getting along literally as diverse group of people in America. Literally, we have to put people in place who support DEI initiatives.
Yeah. It's a complex work. It's not something that can be handled on the surface. It is a work that requires courageous energy and consistency. It is a work that requires collaboration. I think in terms of not creating an environment where people feel like they're forced to do this alone. I think that's one of the most important things that has to be established at this time. I've been involved with a couple of initiatives in this community where we're working across the spectrum of academia, nonprofits, for-profits, medical establishments, et cetera, to make sure we're not just working in silos. Things are happening all around us, but we need to share best practices. We need to talk about what's happening on the ground. We need to talk about reaffirming our commitment and how do we reaffirm that commitment to DEI. We have to do it on a sustained basis because the more isolated people become, the more fearful I think they'll feel, or more paralyzed they'll feel, or more willing or more likely to succumb to some of the pressures that are being experienced in this particular day and time. We've talked a lot on this broadcast about the NFL going back to 2015-16. It's kind of foggy for me right now. I think it was 16 when Colin Kaepernick was blackballed by the NFL and I walked away. We've had some interesting conversations over the last 8 years as a consequence of that. And I'm going to make a little announcement here today that I've just been kind of holding on to until this very moment. But I think I'm going to go back to the NFL this fall. Dave's pretty happy about that. We can talk football again, bro. But it had a lot to do with something Dave and I talked about. So Dave and I can't remember who else was on the show this particular day. It might have been the time you and I were talking, and we were the only what's going on people.
Yeah.
And we had this conversation about the question of, does Colin Kaepernick watch the NFL?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does he watch the games? Does he go to the games? And I got to thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm holding things down for Cap, and he's watching the games. There's something not right here.
Right.
And all of the other challenges, I know I've mentioned other things like the CTE stuff and some of the issues related to, coaching. I think we have 9 coaches of color now in the NFL, but no offensive coordinators of color, which I think is a significant thing because that's usually the pathway to a head coaching position.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to give the NFL a shot this fall. But let me mention a couple of things that's happening in the NFL right now related to this DEI thing, and I'm going to watch them closely to determine how engaged I might be. So this is a quote from an article. The anti-DEI backlash has caused some companies to pause and others to double down on their DEI journeys. And this was said by Cyrus Mary, an attorney who helped craft the league's Rooney Rule more than 2 decades ago. He went on to say that the companies that stay on track will have a competitive edge, and then strongly stated the NFL is one of the companies that is steadfast and doubling down on its commitment to equal opportunity. And then, of course, the article goes into more things about how they are intentionally looking to provide contracts with companies that have minority representation or minority ownership when they have vendor contracts and supply contracts and things of that nature. And even though that's happening a lot slower than some people want right now, it is a focus of the NFL, including recruiting, people of color to the NFL for certain jobs. I'm not talking about on the field as players, but in boardrooms and other positions of significance. I'm excited about my move back to the NFL, Dave, but I'm a little cautious. Should I be?
Yes, I get. Well, I mean, I would say aware, certainly aware. We need to be sensitive to some of the historic concerns that we've had, but quite honestly, the game has changed a lot since the Colin Kaepernick fiasco, and now your most dominant, and I mean it's very obvious at the quarterback position. I mean your most dominant quarterbacks are black. You know, whether you're talking about Mahomes or my man with the Ravens, whose face I'm looking at, but I can't call his name right now because I'm old. You know, it's just a, you know, it's so routine now to see black quarterbacks doing well, even ones who shouldn't be doing well professionally, like what's his name, Watson in Cleveland. That guy, with what he allegedly did and that whole scandal with soliciting sex from massage therapists and all of that foolishness. I mean, you know, you wonder how he's still even in the NFL, let alone with a huge contract. You know, but anyway, they're doing well, and so it's I'd say generally speaking, it's a good thing. Thank you. Our producer Nisi says that it's Lamar Jackson. I knew his last name was Jackson. I couldn't remember his first name. Thanks,
Scott
Nisi.
Laughinghouse is also chiming in too with Lamar Jackson, and also reminding me that Brandon Gamble is also a boycotter.
Right.
Thanks, Scott. We appreciate it.
All right, but like you, I mean, and you know, I hung in there for I don't know how many years we've been boycotting. But man, this past year, it just was hard. And as I've started really watching highlights again, I realized how much I love the beauty of the game. It's a beautiful game in so many ways. It's also a violent game. It's a dangerous game. You know, and I concede all of that. but you have so many people that, despite the risks, are willing to play. Just like we have so many people that are willing to take risks, whether it's driving race cars or
boxing,
actually baseball. I mean, you look at the potential for somebody to get hit in the head with a 100+ mile an hour fastball. That's dangerous, So, I mean, there's a risk associated with a lot of athletic pursuits, greater or lesser degree, probably with all of them to greater or lesser degree. And if people are willing to do it, then I'm probably not going to deprive myself. I mean, it's not like the Roman Colosseums. Come on, guys. It's not that bad. So I'm probably not going to deprive myself anymore of the ability to enjoy it as long as there's equity. And I think, again, that's what was paramount for us with the Colin Kaepernick situation.
Yeah, one thing I used to love to do, and the last time I did it actually was I went to see an Atlanta Falcons game, I think in maybe 2000 and it would have been around 14, 15 or something like that. So I'm also kind of looking forward to getting back into the stadium and checking out some live action. Keith, I don't know if I've sent you into some kind of despair, but of course, because I know the real game is still football, but, at any rate, we're talking about the NFL here and my return to the NFL. This has been methodical, man. This is not something I just impulsively did and jumped right into it. And I know, Scott, you'll be really thrilled to know that I'm going to bring back my NFL picks that I used to always do at the start of every show during the football season. So they're coming back this fall as well. And I'm kind of excited about it.
Well. I think I guess it's kind of like politics, right? In the sense that I mean, Biden ain't my most favorite guy, but I guess you kind of look at the pros and the cons and you say, hey, you make a choice. I guess we're all, when it comes to ethics, we're all utilitarian in one way or another. So all the best, when I'm by your house for Thanksgiving dinner, I still pretend I know the game and root for whoever's winning.
Right. Hey, that's a great move, man. And if you are a communicator, that's an easy thing to do because you just start talking about something. Everybody will fill in the gaps. If the food is good, enjoy the fellowship. Fred, I'm going back to the NFL, man. It's an interesting journey. This decision that I've made and come to, and again, I'm not like, oh man, I can't wait. It's not one of those feelings. It's just that when I'm walking up and down the hallway in my house now, I'm not going to do this anymore. No, I didn't do that. But Sonia likes to watch the NFL. And of course, she always asks me, or has consistently for the last 7-8 years, are you going to watch the Super Bowl? And I said, no. And of course, she's sitting in a living room and, I'm not going to walk past the living room, not saying anything or look in that direction, but I tried hard not to, get hung up too much. But then I think like Dave and I talked about this, ESPN for a while, it was kind of like, okay, it's all over ESPN, and I watch ESPN because I just like sports. And so they're doing all the little analysis and stuff, and I'm intrigued by some things, and I'm interested in some things. I'm like, and now I'm starting to go back, and then they show the best catches, the best hits. I'm like, I'm missing some stuff here. And so I just kind of came back in that process. And I'm glad to be back, Fred. I'm really glad to be back.
Kenny, I enjoyed, or I should say, I also boycotted the NFL for many, many years, with one exception, Kenny. I would watch the Super Bowl. I had a Super Bowl exception to my boycott. And the reason why was because I've been watching the Super Bowl my entire life, since the first one in 64 or 65, I think it was. And my theory was, hey, I can watch this one game. Then the other thing is that when I would go by people's houses that I know where they had the game on, as you said, I didn't just run from the room but I would not get caught up in it. I'm not sure that I'll ever get caught up in football the way that I once was, only because I have so many things that are pointing me in other directions. And I'm not sure that, I'm a boycotter by nature. I haven't bought Shell gas since 1992 because of their refusal to divest from South Africa back when Nelson Mandela was locked up and we were trying to get him free. I haven't been in Walmart in 25 years because what I would say is I have some lectures out there that if Walmart saw them, they probably wouldn't let me come in. So, so I believe in civil action and boycott action, but no, I think it's fair to recognize that it's moved on. Colin Kaepernick is not necessarily the center of the universe as far as DEI in the NFL. I think it's moved on beyond that. Unfortunately, I think he still got a raw deal, but but unfortunately, and for whatever reason, I've heard he's made millions of dollars with his endorsements, et cetera, and he's done okay in life. So yeah, I mean, I understand your decision. It's a fair decision.
Right,
He's probably done better, actually. I hate to say that in a sense. I hate to say it because I don't want to detract from the righteousness of his cause that so many of us rally to. But financially, he's probably done better. You talk about endorsements, that huge endorsement deal with Nike, and then also the Netflix deal that he has. I mean, he's probably done better. And over time, I suspect he's more or less an icon at this point, and so he will probably continue to do well.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna, I just wanted to say one other thing. So I did, and I think Kenny, I think I told you this. I actually, this past Super Bowl was my second Super Bowl.
You did what? You did tell on yourself.
Yeah, it was my second Super Bowl.
This is Confession Sunday, man. We in church.
It is. Forgive me, brethren, for I have sinned. It's been a long time since I've confessed to anything publicly like this. But the Super Bowl prior to that one, to the last one, I guess that was 2023 Super Bowl, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
There were two factors in my life that had a real impact on me. Wow. So the first one was there were two black quarterbacks playing. Mm-hmm. If you recall, it was Mahomes and can't remember who the other black quarterback was, but I saw that and I thought, I don't think I can.
Was it Jalen Hurts?
Yes, you're right. It was Philadelphia. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It was Philadelphia.
You got tell us too.
Was I supposed to know that name?
Well, we know him from Alabama football as well.
Right.
Yeah. But so I remember wanting to watch for that reason. And then, as is the case for so many of us men, the woman I was dating at the time, she wanted to see the Super Bowl. And so I caved, brothers. I caved between the woman who shall remain nameless and the two black quarterbacks. I was done. I couldn't.
That's an excuse, man.
It was too much, Keith. I just didn't have the moral fortitude to stand up against both of those forces. It was just too much.
Adam.
Too much.
But listen, something. Because wasn't Jay-Z supposed to be the DEI czar? I mean, what is Jay-Z done?
Making millions.
Oh, okay.
He was making millions, coordinating halftime shows with hip hop stars, making millions.
Wait a minute. So Tanya Laughing House has chimed in. We appreciate both Scott and Tanya, of course. Love you guys for sure. Tanya says, powerful men blaming their women.
Elder Tanya Laughing House is one of my favorite people in the whole world. I love her dearly, so I have no comeback for that.
Right. And Scott, of course, says everybody's snitching on themselves. So. And he's glad that I caved. So I'm kind of grateful to have caved too, Scott. So it's a big day. Lydia Rose says, just weak, shaking my head. I plead. I'm a weakling. What can I say? I accept it. Guys, on a more serious note, a more somber note, congressional leaders, top 4 congressional leaders, have formally invited Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to address a joint meeting of Congress. They said in this statement, we join the state of Israel in your struggle against terror, especially as Hamas continues to hold American and Israeli civilians captive and its leaders jeopardize regional stability. The letter came from House Speaker Mike Johnson, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who says that bipartisanship is not alive and well. Dr. Keith Burton, your thoughts on this invitation to Benjamin Netanyahu and some of the continuing challenges being posed to the Biden campaign as it relates to the war that seems to have gone left?
Yeah, I think it's a sad state of affairs that shows us the power of what I call Americanism. It's no secret that I view the state of Israel as an occupied state, a colonizing state. And I say that I've provided, the reasons for that, the fact that when we look at those who've presided over the nation since its founding in 1948, the first 6 presidents, first 7 prime ministers, all born in Eastern Europe. Every one of them since then, their parents were born in Europe. Right now, the current prime minister, father from Poland, his mother's parents are from Lithuania. The current president, his father was the former chief rabbi of Ireland, and they're also from Ukrainian background. So I think for anyone to say that this is not a colonial situation, then one is just not looking at the facts of history. But of course, this is true to the form of the United States of America, because we are indeed a colonial government. And it's a shame that we haven't learned lessons from history. It's a shame that we feel that in order for us to survive, that we have to continue to embrace the sort of governing mindset that it's okay for people to take over other people's countries. And I know how strong the Jewish lobby is. I've shared on this show how I was disinvited from a Muslim event. I was a keynote speaker because one of the Jews on the board read something that I wrote about Israel and said it was quote unquote anti-Semitic, and so I know how strong the lobby is, and I know Schumer's alliances. I know who our VP is married to, etc. But I just think it's a shame that we don't have the fortitude to say we will not have people who are committing genocide come to this nation and be legitimized. And to me, it's almost ironic that from a Democratic perspective, when you see Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer sign up on this, I think it's ironic that Democrats are talking about how dangerous it is to have Donald Trump in the presidency. But when we have Trump light, or not even Trump light, Trump exponential doing what he does, we're saying, okay, we're going to give you a free rein because we want you to convince the American people that imperialism and colonization is a great thing.
I want to ask David, the University of Chicago just yesterday had graduation, and a number of students walked out because the university decided to hold 4 diplomas of students who had protested the war in Israel, between Israel and Gaza or Palestine. Talk to me a little bit about, I know we've talked about this before, but talk to me a little bit about your thoughts again about what vulnerabilities lie ahead as it relates to going into the summer season, the Democratic National Convention being held in Chicago again, the potential for protests, and the impact on the Biden candidacy for president. Does this continue to further demonstrate an Achilles heel in his campaign?
Well, it's not going to affect his ability to be the Democratic nominee. But will it affect his ability in November in the general election? It could potentially do that. Sure. I mean, young people in particular, I think, have been very strident in their expressions of disagreement with the president, and I think with good cause. Keith has made, I think a point that, many of us have had concerns about the role that Israel has played in the Middle East, especially as it relates to the Palestinian people. And certainly currently, many of us have grave concerns in the Democratic Party and outside of the Democratic Party about what Israel is doing and the impact that it's having. So, yeah, it will have some impact. Now, will it be the determining factor? I don't know. But, in terms of whether or not Biden will be reelected, but it's definitely going to have impact without question. And it should. I mean, this is a serious issue. It's a global issue. And it does speak to, I think, some of the not just global concerns that we have, but some fundamental concerns about what American values are, because if we're saying one thing and then we're supporting, apartheid in one form or fashion, whether it's in South Africa, as our government did under the Reagan administration, or whether it's, what's going on in Israel currently, it really has been going on to some degree, for probably continuously since virtually since the establishment of the state. So yeah, it's a real concern. I do have one question though, Kenny, for Keith. Keith, you said something that I'm not sure I quite understand. You said the United States is a colonizing. Did you say the United States is a colonizing nation?
Yes.
Explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. So it was. Of course, we talk about the 13 colonies, right?
Right.
So this is how we were founded. We colonized this land, and we've colonized. We've colonized Puerto Rico. We've colonized Alaska. And so we were founded on those colonial principles. And I would hope that at this time, particularly as we speak about living up to the notion that all people are created equal, that we will understand that it's not just all American people are created equal, but that everyone in the world is created equal, and that we would, take a stand when it comes to human rights. And so that's right. Yeah. So that's basically what I mean by us being a colonial nation.
Okay, so I'm going to just push back, but only just a tad bit, Keith. Really, just a slight.
Go ahead. You can do it hard. Go ahead.
and I'm going to say, and it's really a nuance. It's not. It doesn't really take anything away from what you just said. But the colonization that occurred here was not done by the United States. It was done by, what I guess we would say British expatriates, right? They come here. It was not the United States government, at least initially, that did it. Now, over time, yes, but initially, initially it wasn't. And I guess I would say for myself, and again, this may be a distinction without a difference, but I would say for myself, if I was going to look at what is the major crime that has been committed against the indigenous people of this country, I would say more than colonization, it was land theft and it was genocide more so than colonization. But maybe that's a distinction without a difference. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Because I think it's nuanced, and I always look at when we talk about the United States of America, Declaration of Independence were the sons of British basically saying we want all the taxes for ourselves, and so it's basically just another step in the colonization process. But even as we look at how the United States has operated, we can't forget the Trail of Terrors, right? And that took place under this government.
Absolutely.
The whole idea of reservations.
Absolutely.
And so, right. And so, in that sense, I say we are still a colonial nation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate that, gentlemen. I want to give us a chance to speak to Dean Williams, who is watching this afternoon. Dean, thanks for joining in. I'm going to turn these comments over to Dr. Greene and see if he has anything to share. I'm sure we all could say something, but I'm going to give him the opportunity. Dean Williams says, question why? Cornel West not getting publicity. He's running for president. Also, he is more knowledgeable about the world more than both. He goes on to say Cornel West needs more publicity. I'm sure he feels the same way, and we should be promoting him more. I'm sure he also feels the same way about that. And not we. I know what you're saying. People. Last time Cornel West is running for president, I'm not sure if that's been established, if he said that. Everything he just spoke about, Dr. Cornel West speaks on and has strong intelligence, knowledge about facts, land theft, definitely. Thanks, Dean, for your commentary this afternoon. Dr. Greene, any thoughts on Cornel West and his candidacy for president of the United States?
I don't want to spend too much time there because I wanted to get to the other part of the discussion, but I think Cornel West is an interesting. He's brilliant in some ways. He's totally unelectable in the United States on a national level under all circumstances that presently exist. And I don't envision any circumstances in the future where he would become electable. So I don't know that he should be getting more time. I mean, he's a great writer. He's a great scholar in many ways. He's also on the fringe in so many areas of thought that, I think he has an issue with jealousy. He's jealous of Barack Obama for whatever reason. He never seemed to be able to accept the fact that Barack Obama is as brilliant as he is, if not more so. Well, more so, became president. So I don't know. I don't feel that. I mean, politics is a strange thing. I mean, you go back and look at Jesse Jackson when he ran. Run, Jesse, run. Jesse was a smart guy, et cetera. He had far better electability than Cornel West would ever have. And of course, he was not elected. And so I think politics makes choices. I mean, look at, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has a fabulous name. I don't think he needs more recognition. I think he needs to get off the ballot in the states he's on and go back home to, wherever home is. And, he's a nutcase in so many ways. And he can sue me for that if he thinks that's libel. I think I can prove that it's not. But anyway, this is my problem with bringing Benjamin Netanyahu to Congress. And that is, for whatever reason, I don't understand why President Biden doesn't understand something so basic that it could cost him the election. And that is that young America, that is voters under the age of 25, are so adamantly opposed to what's happening, what Israel is doing in Gaza. And don't misunderstand me. I understand that Israel has a right to defend itself. I understand that Hamas, and particularly the military wing of Hamas, who wants to destroy Israel as a nation, that they have to be dealt with. I understand that. I understand that they have a right to defend themselves. But you don't have a right to ignore citizens, women, children, and to go into a nation and just destroy, well, I shouldn't say it's a nation, or go into a territory, occupied territory, and literally destroy people, kill people, innocent people, without any sort of sense of proportionality. 1,250 Israeli citizens lost their lives on October 7, and now you're going to kill 37,000 people with impunity, and then you're going to come speak before Congress. Biden has set himself up in a situation where it's been a while since I've been on your show, Kenny, but a long time ago I said I didn't believe that Donald Trump could beat Joe Biden. And I believed that Americans were not stupid enough to elect Donald Trump again over Joe Biden. And he is now pushing all the buttons to make me wrong about that, because I know in my home state of Michigan, where there are some 250 to 300,000 people of Arab descent, primarily in the Dearborn, Detroit area, but actually all over the state. You can't go anywhere in the state. You want to go get some good falafel, you want to go get, good Arab food, hey, go to Michigan. But now that's not the highest raw number, because New York's a much larger state, Texas, California, much larger states. But the highest percentage of Middle Easterners outside of the Middle East live in the state of Michigan, live in Southeast Michigan. And, if he loses Michigan, that's going to be difficult. But he's losing youth all over. I have children who are, in their 20s, and I can tell you that, what you're seeing on college campuses is a clear indication of the angst and anger that young people see. And young people, what's clear, they know right from wrong. And when you look at, I don't know that we call it genocide. That's a fair term. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just not sure if that's the right term. I don't know. But genocidal like behavior, when you see that and you see the boundaries that have been broken. So unless they're going to bring him to speak before a joint session of Congress and then, scourge him verbally, of course, or correct, or make it clear that, hey, we have a problem with what you're doing. And I don't think that's what they're talking about doing. I think they're talking about rolling out the red carpet and welcoming him as he's just another head of state. And that's a problem. And I think it could cost Biden the election if he doesn't take some serious corrective action and get this whole situation under control, meaning stop the killing in Gaza, and find a way to bring some peace to that region and to implement a two-state solution. And I'm not trying to pick a fight with Doc here. I understand he has a different theory about that, but I don't think his theory has any chance of being implemented in our lifetime. Now, I don't know, maybe he'll live to be 200, but chances are I don't see that happening. So assuming that the two-state solution is the viable solution that still has possibility, without some movement in that direction, I think we have a real problem on our hands, as Biden has a real problem in his hands.
Yeah, the young vote is absolutely going to be a challenge for him. The black vote is going to be a challenge for him. And I'm not saying the majority black vote. I'm saying the ones that have been siphoned off are going to definitely create some problems for Biden in terms of his run. Lydia acknowledges she's a tad nervous about RFK again siphoning off votes. So it's just going to be a real I keep using the word wonky. I don't know why, but that word just seems to fit the climate that we're in right now as far as things are going. I want to talk a little baseball just before we transition off the show with commentators' choices. On June the 2nd, 1925, a day that Stephen Foster remembers, by the way, a 21-year-old Lou Gehrig took the field as a starting first baseman for the New York Yankees, replacing veteran Wally Pipp, who was out of the lineup that day for a headache. Pipp would never start at first for the Yanks again, and Gehrig would become one of the greatest players in baseball history, as well as a man that they call the Iron Horse, for 2,130 consecutive games before several years later, Cal Ripken of the Baltimore Orioles would come and surpass him as the modern-day Iron Horse. Well, today is the 4th anniversary of Lou Gehrig Day in Major League Baseball. All players will be wearing the number 4 in honor of him. It just got me to thinking about my favorite Yankees of all time, and it's really hard to pin me down to 10 because, the Yankees have won more world championships than any other team in any other sport. I just thought I'd note that. And the fact that they, of course, are holding down first place right now. I don't care anything about what the Knicks did in losing. I don't care anything about what the Rangers did last night when they lost. I don't care anything about that. I'm talking about the first place New York Yankees right now. And my top 10 New York Yankees of all time in order: Derek Jeter, Don Mattingly, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, Yogi Berra, Mariano Rivera, Aaron Judge, Bernie Williams, and Thurman Munson. And just think about the honorable mentions that I couldn't even get in the top 10. Jorge Posada, who actually attended Calhoun Community College, and I met him several years ago when he came back to retire the coach, when his coach's retirement event went down. And I was so happy to meet one of my idols on the Yankees. Reggie Jackson, not in my top 10. Can you imagine that? I took Reggie out because Reggie didn't start out with the Yankees. All of those other guys played. I'm one of those hardcore baseball people. I like people that stay with the team their whole career. I understand free agency, and I'm like, take the money that you can take, but Reggie Jackson was he was a hired gun, and we were glad we had him for the time we did, but he's not in my top 10. Ron Guidry, of course, Willie Randolph, one of the best second basemen of all time, and, of course, the Scooter, Phil Rizzuto, who was my dad's favorite player, and just thought I'd recognize that. Also on June the 20th, right here in the state of Alabama, Major League Baseball comes to historic Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama, in a game between the St. Louis Cardinals and the San Francisco Giants. Dave, I would have been there, but the tickets are $1,100 per seat.
Whoa.
I figured if I'm going to do $1,100, I may as well wait for like an NBA playoff game or an NFL game, maybe.
Yeah, that's for me. That's Golden State Warriors
Right.
championship money or something. Wow. I didn't know the tickets were that high.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
$1,100. I think I went on one site where they were running about $800, but the standard, for a reasonable, and this was like out in the outfield somewhere, way out in the outfield. And of course, that takes place June 20th right here in this state. I'm real happy about that. And finally, Darryl Strawberry.
Well, just one quick thing about that game. That's a Negro League tribute game, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's too expensive, but yeah, it's worthwhile cause, I guess.
Yeah. They had a lottery now to get tickets, and these are like the extra tickets that are available. So if people won the lottery, then they, of course, got their tickets in a different manner. But now the rest of us who want to attend the game, and there are seats available, folks. If you have a minimum of $800 to $900, you can be down with the Negro League tribute in historic Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama, on June the 20th. I have nothing going on that day too, and I was so excited when I went on the ticket line because I knew I was going to get to see a historic game honoring the Negro Leagues in historic Rickwood Field. But I'm going to keep that history in my pocket. Guys, it is Commentator's Choice time. Time for you to share with us your thoughts as we round things out on a great conversation today. I want to thank everybody that actually chimed in on the conversation today. We certainly appreciate that. I'm going to start with Dr. Frederick Greene.
Okay, thank you, Kenny. I've been looking at very, very hard in the last few months or even the last year is Congress. I go back and look at my dissertation for my PhD, and it had to do with Congress's failure to act to legislate the internet, failure to act to legislate, electronic technology. And we're once again on the cusp of Congress failing to act. We have a thing called artificial intelligence, which it's blowing up. It's really a phenomenal thing. I mean, if you've ever been on ChatGPT or if you've ever been on any of the artificial intelligence sites, it's amazing what it can do. But it's also amazing what the harm can be. It's amazing what sort of violation of all sorts of rights that can happen, people's individual rights, their rights to their own image, etc. I mean, there's the harm is unbelievable, and I see once again that Congress seems to be slow to act to do something about this. And there are a couple of states that have tried to do something, but there needs to be some serious national legislation that lays out what the parameters are as to what's acceptable behavior and what's not. And I think it would be very unfortunate if Congress lets this moment pass by. When it came to the internet, we still don't have any major legislation that deals with it. It's basically court decisions that were driven by some of the big players. I mean, Google and others that literally drove, the law as to the court opinions relative to not legislating, but passing rules and laws relative to the internet. And so I really hope that someone, some of the congressmen, congresswomen, congresspeople, I guess it is, would figure out that, hey, we really need to get in front of this and do something to protect people's rights, et cetera, in that area. So that's my commentator's choice.
Well, that's an excellent one for sure. Dr. Keith Burton.
Yeah, I just want to express condolences to the Obama and Robinson families. the death of their matriarch. And I always like to say, when I look at Marian Robinson as well as Michelle Obama, when I look at the great achievement of Barack Obama, I really look at it through their lens, because they are indeed American descendants of slavery who were the first in the White House. So as much as we do celebrate and recognize the significance of an Obama presidency, I think when we look at the general African American legacy, these are the two, I think, who I personally celebrate more as it relates to that great achievement. But still, the theme of politics, I want to talk about three elections, and there can be no long dissertation, but three elections. First, South Africa. South Africa just had their national elections, and the ANC, for the first time since apartheid, was not able to get the majority of votes. They fell under 50%, and they need a supermajority to actually form a government. And so now they're going to have to make some alliances with some of the 40-something parties that were actually a part of the process. And I'm hoping, even though I'm not a big fan of the Democratic Alliance headed by Helen Zille, I'm not a big fan of them, but I'm hoping that they would try to forge a relationship with the Democratic Alliance so that South Africa can sort of move forward, because it's been stalled since apartheid days. Second, very quick, in Mexico, right now as we speak, I'm not sure if the results have been announced, but Claudia Sheinbaum and Sahiti Galvez, and we're going to have the first female leader in Mexico. What's interesting, Claudia Sheinbaum, as her name betrays, is actually Jewish. Her parents are Lithuanian and Bulgarian. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that realm. And finally, the country of my birth, the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak just announced an election that's going to be taking place for the next few months. And so it's going to be interesting to see. If I think the Conservatives have been in power for about 16 years. Some may say longer, because Blair was not Labor at all. But anyway, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens over there. Because I think in all of these elections, somehow we are impacted in ways that we probably could think about. So just a little global perspective of some of the things that's taken place as it relates to shifting in those who will lead the nations on the international sphere.
Yeah, and that Mexican election has been quite bloody too. It's
Oh,
lot
yeah,
of murders.
30,
And,
yeah, 34. I think it's 34 people who 34 candidates. Like, Lord have mercy.
yeah,
This
they've killed candidates. They've killed
Yeah.
allies of candidates. I mean, just a
Mhm.
lot of people have lost their lives in this, and sometimes at political rallies. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a real chaotic environment. So one only has to wonder, how do you come out of that, and what are the expectations? Because the level of violence certainly suggests many things
Yeah.
as a consequence of that. So we'll have to keep our eye on that as well, especially with Mexico being an ally of the United States.
Mhm.
David Person.
So I'm going to take us back to baseball. Something historic happened this past week. The statistics from the Negro Leagues were integrated into the statistics for Major League Baseball, and that is significant for a couple of reasons. One, because it plays, I think, pays proper respect and due to, though many years late, we understand that, and it can't make up for the inequities that occurred in the past, but at least the historical record now will be much more accurate in terms of the contributions of Negro League players to what used to be called America's favorite pastime. So that's important. And in doing so, what we learn, I think unequivocally, is that Josh Gibson is the most profound, prolific offensive player in the history of baseball.
Yes.
When you look at the various categories, career batting average, career slugging percentage, he dominates names like Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Roger Hornsby, Lou Gehrig, Kenny, New York Yankee. When it comes to other categories, he also dominates them. And then where he doesn't dominate, he places very high up near the top. And for those who don't know who Josh Gibson is, you ought to research him. He is a mythic character in baseball. In fact, some have said that he was called the Black Babe Ruth, and Babe Ruth was called the White Josh Gibson. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring up a little baseball there.
Hey, listen, I'm glad you did, because that is significant. That's something that has been talked about for a while. I think it does sort of, balance the playing field when we start talking about these comparative things. And we talk about the damage, actually, that integration did to the Negro Leagues, but also the opportunities that were achieved as a consequence of that, but also speaks to the falling rate of black players in the league today, much lower rate than it was many, many years ago, and an increase, of course, of Hispanic players and players from other countries. So, it's an interesting wave of things going on in baseball right now that us baseball people are definitely interested in. Of course, I'm watching Juan Soto from the Dominican Republic hold down right field for the Yankees right now as a real force of nature at the top of just about every category right now, certainly an early MVP candidate. And, everyone knows that when you put on the pinstripes, you're expected to produce. He has overproduced in his very first 2 months.
No question.
And it's just been amazing to see him play.
And I was glad to see that Derek Jeter was at the top of your Yankees list, because without question, that guy was phenomenal. You're looking at De Soto. I'm looking at De La Cruz with the Cincinnati Reds. Just to give people a sense of who this young man is, Ellie De La Cruz. This kid, he not only does he have a solid bat, he has a phenomenal arm, and he's got amazing speed. He did something that only has been done, I think, 4 or 5 times in the history of Major League Baseball. He stole in one inning. He stole second base, third base, and home plate in one inning, and he did it actually quicker probably than it's ever been done, because I want to say he did it in less than a minute or something crazy like that. With the least amount of pitches thrown. I mean, it's just something insane. And he's a black Hispanic player, De La Cruz, phenomenal guy with the Cincinnati Reds. They're not a great team, but he's a phenomenal player.
Yeah, he is. And at this point, he's going to play his contract out, and then he's going to sign a big contract with another team at some point. Due to that free agency thing. But, 2 pitches. That's what Scott jumped in, helped us out. He did it on 2 pitches.
Yeah, I knew it was something crazy. I mean, I watched it, and I was just like, I can't believe what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Never seen anything like that.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal player and has a lot of promise. Rookie last year, came into the league with a lot of anticipation, and so he's living up to some of the hype that people expected to see. Well, guys, that brings us to the end of another conversation, and I appreciate all of you today, David Person, Dr. Keith Burton, Dr. Frederick Greene. Thank you for joining us. Brother Scott Laughinghouse, the Tanya Laughinghouse, and all the rest of y'all that chimed in on the conversation. We appreciate y'all being with us today. Yeah, he does have a solid glove, Scott. And we look forward to the next conversation coming up very, very soon. Thanks, Dean, for joining us for the first time. Make sure it's not your last. We appreciate you chiming in as well. And we look forward to the next time. We'll be back actually at the end of the month for what's going on. I'll be back over the next few weeks, but we've got a 5th Sunday. And because of Father's Day, which is the next opportunity, I don't want to hold these fathers down in any way and put any burden on them to be on this show on that day. After all, they might have looked at me and say, well, we know we call you a father of many, but you're not a biological father. We have responsibilities to take care of. Why are you holding us down on Father's Day? So we shifted the 3rd week to the 5th week, and we'll have some combination of the fellas back, or the sisters, however that works out, on June the 29th, I believe it is. So we'll see you then. Guys, have a great afternoon.
Take care, brother.
All right. Peace. Folks, we thank, oh, look at the, keep celebrating. Thank you, brother. We appreciate the balloons this afternoon. We appreciate you all tuning in this afternoon. I'm going to come back in just a moment and let you know about what's happening on next week. It's Second Chance. I'm Kenny Anderson. I hope you're having an amazing afternoon.
Perhaps you have some ideas, comments, or suggestions that you would like to share, or perhaps you'd like to be a guest on the broadcast. We'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to email Kenny Anderson at mxlife@aol.com, or you can like us on the Second Chance Facebook page. That's 2ND Chance. And now, back to more of Second Chance with Kenny Anderson.
Thanks again to my guests this afternoon, David Person, Dr. Keith Burton, and Dr. Frederick Greene, for joining me for insight and perspective on a variety of things. And, of course, we have the opportunity to be able to share with you on a regular and sustained basis. So we will be back again on the next opportunity. On next week, I've got several conversations, including some live drops that we'll have on next Sunday with our general manager, Donna Baker, who will be with us. But we'll be talking with Dr. Harry Hobbs and Fred Whitlow II about the big back-to-school event, CAFE 2024. Dr. Caracas, Doc Rock Watkins, will be on to talk about his book, Attitude Determines Altitude, and also the big Empower Personal and Professional Development Conference that's coming up in July. I'll talk to Kimmy Birchler, the development coordinator with the United Cerebral Palsy Organization, about the great work that they're doing. And then Adina Payton, who runs a nonprofit called Grammy, that you don't want to miss that information. We hope to see you on next week. And that will happen at 2:00 p.m. on WJOU 90.1 FM, WJOU.org on the net, and on our live stream on Facebook and YouTube. In the meantime, I hope that you have a great rest of the week. Remember, knowledge is better than riches. Have a great afternoon. We'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Second Chance. We hope that the information that was shared has been a blessing to you and that your life will be enriched as a result of it. We'd love to hear from you. So please send your email comments to Kenneth Anderson at mxlife@aol.com. That's mxlife@aol.com. And check out our Facebook page, 2ND Chance. That's 2ND Chance. In the meantime, have a great week, and we'll talk to you again next week. Good day.